around 7 o'clock, we had the vote take place on the Tories' so-called wrecking amendment to the Children's Wellbeing Bill. And this was, if we go back down to the figures here, we had 111, if they keep changing this on Sky News. Don't know exactly where it is, but you had 111 MPs voting for the supposed wrecking amendment. Now, it is quite a confusing situation, and we'll try and best explain it to you in that the MPs that voted against this amendment, a lot of them will have been doing so just because they did not want to get rid of the whole of the Children's Wellbeing Bill. So this included various things about free school meals, children being able to afford their school clothes, changes to the school curriculum, things about children's safety as well. So after the very sad death of that little girl, Sarah Sharif, who was, essentially beaten to death by her parents, making sure, in her case, her parents were allowed to take her out of school, homeschool her and whatnot, making sure that those slip-ups don't happen again, putting in various safeguards in place. And the reason why this got called by the Labour Party a wrecking amendment is because the Tories added in this amendment asking for a national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal. If people voted for that amendment, it would essentially detopple the rest of the entire bill. So that is perhaps one of the reasons why MPs voted against it. Keir Starmer putting his MPs in quite a difficult position by putting in place a 3-line whip on this vote as well. So essentially saying, if you do not support the government, if you vote for the Tories' amendment, you will be kicked out of the Labour Party. You will then become a Labour MP. So anyone who wanted to support that amendment for a national inquiry, who is a Labour MP, would have faced pretty dire consequences for their career. Alex, let's go to you first. What are your thoughts on the vote that's just taken place this evening?
I mean, Chloe, I'm utterly dismayed at the entire day today, not just the vote, but the debate in Parliament during PMQs as well. It seems that our political class have just completely failed, not just us, but time and time again, they're failing, children and victims of this absolute scandal. And
I just realised you could see my WhatsApp.
I was just checking if the screen was blurry for everyone else. But
right, hopefully nobody saw anything.
What it is, Chloe, is that Keir Starmer and Jess Phillips and the Labour Party in general have got an agenda. There is so much more going on, despite the facts being given to them that there are up to 50 towns. They still won't call a national inquiry to join the dots together to hold those people who escaped being held accountable for their crimes. Those people in positions of authority like the police, the CPS, loads of them got away with it. It is shocking to me that anyone in their conscience can vote against a bill like this. That is 300 or so Labour MPs whose names are going to go down in history as voting to deny justice for victims of child rape and torture. That is going to be their legacy. I really hope they realise what they've done and how unforgivable this is going to be, and it's not going to go away.
Connie, now we had Keir Starmer come out yesterday and accuse people calling for a public inquiry of jumping on a far-right bandwagon. What did you think of those comments?
I genuinely couldn't believe that was the route that he went down. Like, there were rumours that people were saying, people online were saying this is just a far-right thing, or conspiracy, or a far-right bandwagon to jump on. But I genuinely could not believe that was the route that he went down for that press conference. And I'm so interested to know what his advisors are telling him, because they go on about wanting to not stoke up division, but it's like he's asking for people to take to the streets because people are so outraged by it. But then on the other hand, and something that I've been wondering about is, because we're active on X, how much do ordinary people actually know about this? Because the mainstream media, they're not able to even say the things out loud that we're reading all the time on X. So I don't think the majority of the public have any idea about what actually happened. Because when I saw Charlie's report, genuinely, I had no idea how bad the whole thing was. My mum used to tell me, oh yeah, this grooming gang scandal was really bad in some cities. I knew it was bad, but I had no idea how bad. And I think that's the point. Keir Starmer saying, oh, none of you lot cared about this before. No one knew how bad it was before. Before Charlie's report, no one knew how bad it was. So forgive us for not making as big of a song and dance about it as we are now. I mean, the question is, why do they not care more after hearing how bad it was? Like, why is the question being pointed to people who are suddenly caring about it? For whatever reason, why are they not caring about it more? And I think the way that the questions are being asked from both sides it's so sinister. Like the way that Bridget Phillipson posted this morning saying, I couldn't believe that the Tories would stoop this low to vote against protecting children. I mean, I don't have words for it.
It was just I would like to come back on that, but it was specifically. I do have perhaps maybe a little bit more sympathy than Alex had there for the people that did not vote for the amendment, because it meant the toppling of this whole other bill on children's well-being, which had a lot of good stuff in it. We had I saw Kwasi Kwarteng was talking on GB News to Chris Hope earlier, and he was explaining what probably would have been a more appropriate intervention is to organise what's called an opposition day, where the opposition have the opportunity to bring forward things and vote on them. It's not binding, but it wouldn't have put MPs in such an awkward position. Also, so I just want to show you this was the article that Miriam Cates wrote earlier, sort of explaining the situation, because it's quite complicated with the different stages of the bill, how it works. So she was saying, these kind of add-on amendments where you're just adding to something rather than it wrecking the whole bill, that happens at a later stage. That happens at the committee stage and report stage of the bill, which comes later, as opposed to the second reading, which we have done today, which Miriam says is simply a binary decision as to whether MPs agree that the piece of legislation should continue through Parliament or whether it should be thrown out altogether. So if the MPs did not support the government today, that whole bill would have been thrown out altogether. Now, that maybe means that at the later stages, the committee stages, there is the opportunity to try and push for another amendment on this. I mean, I doubt that will happen. I think the Conservatives probably wanted to strike whilst the iron was hot and whilst this was in the news, rather than wait weeks and months for it to get to later stages. So that's maybe why that they made that intervention today. But Miriam says here, Labour MPs therefore faced an enormously difficult decision if they voted for the amendment because they agree a national inquiry is needed. They will also be voting to sabotage a key piece of government legislation. So quite a difficult position for MPs to be in today. Ultimately, I think if the Labour Party is going to bring forward a national inquiry, they've got to do it themselves. It's going to be quite hard for the Conservatives to force it upon them. But just going back to what Connie was saying about, what on earth is Keir Starmer being told by his advisors? What is going through their head? I'm just wondering your thoughts on that, Alex. Does Keir Starmer genuinely believe that the ICSA report that was done previously, does he genuinely think that it is sufficient and the best thing they can do for victims is to implement the recommendations in that report? Or do you think that he knows that it's not appropriate, but he wants to cover the reputation of the Labour Party and potentially of himself, and so he's just using this as a cover? What do you think, Alex?
Well, it's pretty clear from Jess Phillips's remarks today, before we even got to the debate in Parliament, PMQs at least, that she said she would support a national inquiry if the grooming gang victims said so. Well,
Yeah, there was a
funnily
bit of a
enough,
change of tone there, which I think is quite important to note, because at first it seemed like they were completely ruling it out, and then it sort of changed to, we'll listen to what the victims want.
yeah, but the interesting thing there, Chloe, is that she hasn't actually spoken to Telford victims yet. And, it's very, very rich for someone like Jess Phillips to go on BBC. She had the time to prepare for an interview and go to BBC studios, but she hasn't got the time to call victims that she is meant to be safeguarding. I think that should tell the audience everything they need to know about Labour's intentions to broaden the scope of that bill to cover all of those extra towns and cities and actually hold people accountable. Yes, the bill today will do some good, and I applaud any move to make children safer in our very dangerous country, but it doesn't go far enough. That's the point. It doesn't actually tackle the root cause of the grooming gangs. It doesn't have provisions to hold people in power accountable. And the British public don't want to see more flag waving saying we've done something. I mean, Keir Starmer's reforms of the CPS that he heralds them as some sort of savior. He makes himself out to be the hero of the story. Well, his reforms were slammed only last year by Warwick University, who did an investigation into them, who's still finding that victims of child sexual abuse and women being raped are still being treated like perpetrators. They're being dismissed. So do I have any faith in this? No. The other important thing the audience needs to know is that Labour only committed to implementing the CSA inquiry, the independent inquiry to child sexual abuse, the only committed to that this Sunday at 1 p.m. I mean, this is not a government that cares. They're only caring because Elon Musk and GB News have exposed and brought back this story. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about this. This is the reality. It's shocking. It's shocking, shocking stuff. So for them to be parading themselves around like they've done some good and to be criticizing everybody for jumping on a bandwagon is rich. Because if it wasn't for this so-called far-right bandwagon, we wouldn't be even voting on this at all. So we've got to put into perspective. Going back to your question, do you think Keir Starmer is going far enough or does he care? No. Quite apparently, no.
Still watching? Well, I've got a quick ask for you. Recent UK, we're fighting the woke brigade and inspiring young Brits, but we need your help to go bigger. We're hosting a fundraiser and would love you to sign up and share the link on the big day. It's easy, it makes a massive impact, and there are prizes for top fundraisers. Click the Google form in the description to join us. Cheers very much. Let's keep going together.